Daria Albinger, ABC News.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. 2 of the 11 COVID-19 deaths reported by the Utah Department of Health Wednesday occurred in northern Utah. 2 Box Elder County men, both of them between 65 and 84 years of age, were both hospitalized at the time of death. There have been 3,106 COVID deaths in Utah, 145 of them in Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties. More than 1,400 new positive cases were included in the Utah Department of Health report, and 22% of them were school-age children. Also, 106 positive cases were found in Utah's 3 northern counties. There have been 534,936 positive cases in Utah since the start of the pandemic. In Utah, there are 534 people hospitalized with COVID-19, 11 more than reported Tuesday. There are 203 patients in intensive care, 1 more than was reported yesterday. And there have been 23,413 hospitalizations in Utah since the start of the pandemic. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight. Mostly cloudy skies, overnight low in the lower 30s, and then partly cloudy in the morning on Thursday, becoming mostly sunny, high temperature in the lower 60s, partly cloudy and mid-60s on Friday. Right now we have 55 degrees at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology. Call Dr. Paul Danes at 753-HEAR or visit cachehearing.com.
Okay, Piggy, this time that steel building is coming down.
What you got there, Wolfie?
It's a tornado in a tube. How can that be? Your building's still standing. I'm blown away.
A building from Northern Steel Buildings will keep out the big bad wolf, and they don't break the piggy bank. Visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concepts to construction.
KVNU News Time is 4:07. A judge has refused to bind a 30-year-old Lehigh woman over on charges of raping a Smithfield teenage boy 4 years ago. Judge Angela Fonsbeck said prosecutors failed to prove that Kylie Labram was a person of trust to the alleged victim when the crimes were reportedly committed. The ruling came during a preliminary hearing for Labram in First District Court Tuesday morning. She had previously been charged with 10 counts of rape, a first-degree felony, and 1 count of forcible sexual abuse, a second-degree felony. Cache County Deputy Attorney Clark Harm said the court should bind Labram over on the rape charges because she often cared for the family's children. Defense attorney Greg Skordas disagreed with Harms, claiming there was no evidence that Labram ever cared for the alleged victim to justify the more serious crimes. He said this was a case where his client allegedly engaged in an illegal and inappropriate relationship, but it did not rise to the level of rape. After meeting with attorneys in chambers, Judge Fonsbeck said she agreed with Skordas. She explained that the evidence suggested Labram had a close friendship with the family, but there was no indication that she was ever asked to babysit the alleged victim. And police have released the name of a woman who died after being hit by a suspected drunk driver fleeing from police Saturday afternoon. Fox 13 reports Tai Huang Vu, also known by family and friends as Tai Vu Mims, was killed when her vehicle was hit by a large pickup truck in Salt Lake City. Another woman who has not been publicly identified was in the vehicle with Mims and suffered life-threatening injuries. She is still in critical condition. Salt Lake City police said a dog, which they believe was in the vehicle with the 2 women, was also killed in the crash. Mims, who was 33 years old, and her husband owned and operated a local bakery called Mims SLC. Many fellow local businesses, customers, friends, and family have mourned the tragic loss and talked about her involvement in the community. KVNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Get your news from KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
When the bills from your accident pile up, it's time for you to consider professional legal counsel. Get the Berenson and Caldwell.
My name's Keenan Prescott. Berenson and Caldwell helped me manage a lot of different aspects to a complicated case. Someone hit me head on with their car, and I've had a lot of different legal things surrounding that, like my health insurance broke their contract with me. My medical bills would not have been paid without Berenson and Caldwell. They've been really good at explaining things and helping me understand their process.
Visit BerensonLaw.com to instantly connect and receive a free case review of your injury. BerensonLaw.com.
Hi kids! Today we're going to learn the difference between dirty and clean. See this car? It's dirty. Now watch as it goes through Green Gorilla Car Wash. Now the car is clean. To recap, first the car was dirty. Now it's clean. Dirty, clean. You get it? And for only $14.99, get monthly unlimited washes good for any of their washes, including the $18 Jungle Wash with ceramic coating.
No one thinks their vehicle's dirty until they see what clean looks like. Green Gorilla Car Wash in Logan, and now their new location in Smithfield.
Utah and Cache Valley are in a critical housing shortage. Inventory is low and prices are high. We need attainable housing for our children, our school teachers, and essential workers. Proposition 1 will help bring much-needed attainable housing to Providence and Cache Valley. Vote for Proposition 1. Paid for by Complete Vineyard for Providence.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, hour one of today's show, Wednesday, October 20th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. Coming up on the show today, an amazing presentation given by Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson in the elections office today during legislative interim meetings. This was in response to a couple of lawmakers who called for an audit of Utah's elections and got a sympathetic committee chair to give them a hearing during a committee meeting today. The Lieutenant Governor in Elections Office showed up, and man, did they show up. The presentation was amazing, but it also was really enlightening about how elections are kept secure here in Utah. We'll talk about that later on. Joined by a very special guest, the director of something called the Full Stack Academy. They've just partnered with Utah State University to start offering tech boot camps here in Cache Valley for everyone, literally. And there are scholarships. This is an amazing thing. We'll talk about that in hour two of today's show. Kicking us off here, though, a very special guest joining us for our monthly episode of Speak to the Mayor without the mayor. With Logan City Mayor Holly Daines, a candidate for re-election in this municipal race underway now, we felt it best to put a pause on this a little bit and then decided we'll miss it. So we worked things out with the mayor in Logan City to have a very special guest from the city join us each and every month. So this will be the final month of No Mayor, Speak to the Mayor here on For the People. When we do our episode next month, the election will have taken place. We'll know the results, and we'll have the winner begin revisiting the studio. But today we have with us, again, a very special guest from Logan City. Joining us in place of Logan City Mayor Holly Daines, we have Logan City's Economic Development Director, Kirk Jensen. And Kirk, appreciate taking some time for KVNU to do this. I know in our out of the day of an economic development director is a pretty big deal. You, I would guess, are one of the busier people in Logan City. No offense meant to other departments in the city, but this is a job that's never finished. Do you ever have a day when you think, no, economy developed, I'm going home?
It's been crazy. It's been really busy for sure. It's great to be here, Jason. Appreciate you having me on the show. But certainly, COVID kind of threw a weird wrinkle into things. But even during COVID, which, I expected it to kind of slow things down.
Sure.
And while at the outset of that, more of my time, not the majority, but a portion of my time was dedicated to just understanding some of the ramifications, the sources of assistance coming from the federal government, et cetera. But in the wake of that, not shortly after that broke out, you could just feel the humming. The economy was doing well prior to COVID. Cache Valley was performing strong, but even more so. And right now it's really an incredible pace of activity and people looking to do things. So it's a fun time.
It's, we've talked about this two recessions in a row now, at least while I've been here on the show. We've seen the same thing where Cache Valley, so Utah's economy tends to hold up a bit, is a bit more resilient in a recession. We're hit, but not hit as hard as other states. And then Cache Valley, inside of Utah, is usually more resilient than the rest of the state. I got corrected on this by a state economist, actually, that we were speaking with. I'd always heard it was because of, everything's so eclectic. The university brings in a lot of businesses that maybe wouldn't otherwise be here, et cetera. And a state economist said, no, it's food and retail. That's basically why Cache Valley's economy does so well. Food, services of some kind, and retail. And he said, of course, that's a gross oversimplification, but he said that's really a big part of it. And Logan City benefits from that, but has never had an opportunity to just kind of sit back and rest on that, right? You have to compete.
Yeah, and things come at you, too. That's the other part of it.
Sure, like a pandemic.
Yeah, for sure.
Or businesses leaving or wanting to relocate here.
Yeah, I think there's a certain sense out there that, cities, communities completely control their growth. I mean,
sure,
that stuff just comes at you, right? And Cache Valley is a very desirable community, great place to live, great quality of life, ranks high in all of those things. Safety is another great thing. So people are going to come. Plus, you got the indigenous growth, or the natural growth of children, grandchildren, wanting to live here.
Which is where most of our growth is going to come from over the next few decades, right?
I think
people
so.
Born here and wanting to stay.
Yeah, and then you have a segment of people wanting to relocate or move back to Logan that maybe went to Utah State or had some other connection with the area.
Sure.
And even recently we're seeing some, in-migration of people coming from other areas where they just want a higher quality of life. So
it's a great situation to be in, but it also presents some challenges. And I've always... I've never served in a role like this, but I've had the opportunity over the years to speak with economic development directors at, smaller cities like North Logan, larger cities like Salt Lake, and the one constant theme is, you're doing your best with the data you have, with the information you have, to guess at the future, but then a couple of months later, there's a big event of some kind, and everything changes, and yet you're trying in your job. Is this a fair characterization, I guess, would be my question. It seems like you're trying to look ahead and say, this is likely where we're going. How can we best grease the wheels on that?
Yeah, that's an accurate characterization, definitely.
And then you're surprised the next week by some national story that changes the whole game, right?
Yeah, right. Always curveballs, always little things that crop up. But that, for me personally, that's what makes the job interesting and exciting.
Is there something that's a current, high priority in Logan City as far as, economic development focus? Or is it just trying to keep everything that's going on happening?
A little bit of both, but certainly there's a couple of priority projects right now. Number one, I'd say at the top of the list would be the mayor's vision for the Central Block Plaza, where the Emporium building now sits, 55 North Main. The city owns a few buildings there, and for some time we've been planning on what takes that place. And
Sure.
So we're really excited about a community plaza that will start to unfold. That process will begin in December.
Yeah.
Late December, after we get past Christmas, to convert that space into a public plaza, a small performance stage for a small venue-type concert, ice skating rink, splash pad, and then we also own the Plaza 45 building just immediately south of that plaza area, which, here in the next 2 to 3 months, we will put that out for a request for proposals to sell that building, with the idea of converting that ground level space into a restaurant. And then, of course, there's second and third floor spaces there that can be converted into office space or some other use there. So that definitely is a focal point of activity for us staff at Logan City. Another one would be Costco. That one,
people are excited about this.
Yeah, it's been fun. That's, sometimes as a city employee, you walk around the street or you run into somebody and, you might hear this and that. And it's mostly positive, but you might get a wisecrack comment every once in a while. But Costco has been fun just because it seems like, people, if they bring it up, will say, oh, man, just what you said, Jason. I'm so excited that Costco's coming. So we're excited about it as a city.
I've heard over the years, I think we've heard nothing more frequently than when we're getting a Costco, when are we getting a Target?
Right.
And of course, the decision on that is not up to the city, right? Target, for example, it's not that Logan City hasn't invited them. It's how they do business that they've chosen not to locate.
Yeah, they
here.
study market areas. They know their growth model and where they want to be. Getting back to your earlier comment, though, what we try to do is grease the skids, stay in communication with their representatives, and go for opportunity where we see opportunity.
It's fascinating stuff, and I'm really glad we have a full hour to dig into this because it's something that few people actually get to, see the insides of, the inner working of this economic development in general. And this is key to the future of, I hate to express it this way to listeners, but it is kind of a good way to express what is happening throughout Utah. But cities are to some extent in competition with each other a bit. Of course, rising tides, all boats, all of that. But still, businesses understand that this is really competitive. And where they locate is something that sometimes they know they can sort of hold out there and say, all right, who's going to wow us? And that's a huge part of bringing and keeping jobs to a local area. And that is what Kirk does in part with Logan City as Economic Development Director. And we'll be back with more here on our Speak to the Mayor segment without the mayor. Kirk Jensen, Logan City's Economic Development Director, our guest this hour. More right after this.
This is the weekly sports report for Green Canyon High School. Girls soccer earned the number 5 seed in the state playoffs and defeated Bear River in the first round, then fell to Skyview in the quarterfinals. Football has a bye, finishing third in seeding for the state playoffs. Cross country ran a cold, wet, muddy race in the Preston Invitational. Kenny Latvakoski, Jackson Mons, and Clark Campbell all placed in the top 20 as the boys took third and the girls placed fifth. The Green Canyon High School Sports Report is brought to you by Primary Care Pediatrics, Spartan Companies, Advanced Heating, and Aero Fasteners.
This election, vote Keegan for Logan. With support from county and state leaders, Keegan Garrity understands the importance of working together while considering all perspectives. Keegan believes that by following smart growth principles, we can keep the city downtown while preserving the open spaces we love. Keegan is willing to engage with anybody, including those with opposing viewpoints. He's the type of guy you could share a Diet Coke with. Vote Keegan, a voice for the people. Paid for by the committee to elect Keegan Garrity.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Daines will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Dr. Daines for an appointment at 753-HERE and let him show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Joined in studio by Logan City Economic Development Director Kirk Jensen, and he's with us through the hour. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to join us, 753-5868. And Kirk, you were talking there a bit about the general changes, the challenges that come your way because of the pandemic immediately, of course, and others. I'd mentioned, and I really do hate putting it this way because it makes it seem like it's, a war zone out there for cities. But in a way, cities are sort of competing with each other to attract businesses, to keep businesses here. And that's part of what you consider as well. Like, how do we get them to stay, stop them eyeing up other areas, but also how do we attract new businesses in? How do you go about that? What are these meetings like, or these brainstorming sessions like?
Well, let me touch on the competitive aspect. Certainly when it comes to retail, where cities are funded largely through sales tax revenue.
Sure.
Retail, is at a premium, so it's a competitive game, right?
Yeah.
They want to, especially when you're talking to, larger type mid-box, big-box stores. So competition exists there. When it comes to the manufacturing side, I mean, there may be some competition, but I think there's really less emphasis on that, because if you land a manufacturing company and it's in North Logan or Providence or Logan, Smithfield, I mean, those workers, the impact that operation will have on the local economy, it really doesn't matter too much where it is, whether it's in this city or that city. So
sure.
If Logan doesn't have a suitable site for, say, a great lead, and we're trying to chase that lead, we're happy to help direct some attention and focus on a site elsewhere in the valley, just because we realize that will be good for Cache Valley. So
that's an interesting aspect of this as well, that Logan City, we talk about this from the public policy perspective all the time, whether we're talking, sewers and infrastructure or roads and housing planning. Logan City, of course, the largest city in the valley, and oftentimes what happens in Logan City sets the tone for the rest of the valley. Very much the case with I was thinking about this as I mentally prepped for you coming in today. I know more people in my life drive from where they live into Logan for work than anywhere else, or than people I know who work in their same city. And that, of course, is good for Logan City, but also sort of, I think, does a great job of spelling this out, what the economic conditions are here.
Right.
That's a burden a bit for Logan City, right?
Well, sure. When you're a work center, I mean, you're going to have greater infrastructure costs, impacts to the city, be it utilities, infrastructure, police, fire, all those kind of things. Now, certainly the flip side of that is there's going to be some property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, but
sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of a two-sided coin.
Has there been, in all the years that you've done this, have there been any huge surprises? Have you ever, just been headed down a certain direction or road and all of a sudden everything's up in the air?
I'm sure there have been. But you just deal with those. Usually, I mean, what I see a lot of times playing out in economic development is, as you will be going down a path of working for a certain project or trying to facilitate something to happen or business to come in, and you think you're making progress, you work at it, and then for whatever factor it is, that's kiboshed and it's the end of it. So you get used to that. There's a lot of false starts, those illegal procedure football penalties that you see in economic development. It looks like you're going somewhere and then nope, you're not. So you just keep plugging away in one direction or another.
That is, and the state plays a bit of a role in this too, right? There's the governor's office of economic development, and they're looking at things on a big, broad, statewide level, but they coordinate with folks like you, right? Or they should. Hopefully they are.
They do, definitely. And a good example of that is a recent expansion, Cytiva, which used to be GE Healthcare, which originally was all Thermo Fisher Scientific, and they divested themselves of a portion of the business. The serum business.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
The words
myself.
are kind of escaping me a little bit, but that was a good example of the city partnering with the state, where there was a contemplated expansion. Does it happen in Logan? Does it happen somewhere else where Cytiva has a presence? And so those are the kind of projects where the state has a vested interest, right, in ensuring that a large-scale expansion like this occurs within the state of Utah. They don't want to lose that to say, another state, and Logan City obviously has a vested interest to see that growth occur here and keep that community vibrant. So we teamed up with them on that project.
That is, when I think about economic development, and these are two extreme examples, obviously, but on one end of the spectrum, you have, booming area of growth and new jobs and vibrant economy, a lot of economic activity. On the other end of the spectrum, you have ghost town, and it happens, right? I mean, we I think take this for granted, but there are areas in the state right now, tragically, this isn't something to celebrate. Just be glad it's not happening here. But there are areas in the state right now where the foundation of the economy of that county or city or area has sort of bottomed out, and people are having to literally uproot and leave for jobs.
Oh yeah,
and that's what, at the very core, that's what you're preventing. You're there to try and prevent that from being a direction we take.
You see that kind of thing. I mean, historically, it's happened all over the country, right? A town that was focused on, say, the steel industry or whatever, and the dynamics changed, and all of a sudden those jobs just go away, and that community becomes like a ghost town. We're fortunate here in Cache Valley that we have a very diverse economy. Years back, I kind of looked at some of those categories, and of course, we've got, a 25% of our, around 25% of our workforce is in a manufacturing-related business. So we've got education. We've got, the university and the public school system. We've got government, both the county, the city, and those kind of things. So
we have a space dynamics laboratory. Once in a while,
I
pause and think about that.
It's just incredible, and they, and they just keep growing and growing, and really can't get enough people to fill all the jobs that they're creating. So we're very blessed to have a diverse economy that, should a certain sector get a bullet shot at it, I mean, the entire economy is not going to, go down the drain, so to speak.
Sure. And again, for listeners, we've seen that in the past two recessions. Once again, Utah, because of statewide economic structure, it fared relatively well. There was pain, but not like you saw in other states in the last two recessions. And then inside of Utah, Cache Valley stands out. In fact, both Governor Herbert previously and Governor Cox just recently said, Governor Cox during a rural town hall we were broadcasting here said, we need to look at what's happening in Cache County when it comes to the economy, and we need to take that to other parts of the state where they're struggling. And he said that was a focus of his administration. So it kind of puts all of this in perspective. Something going right here. If you'd like to join us, 753-5868. Our guest again this hour, Economic Development Director with Logan City, Kirk Jensen. He's joining us for our monthly Speak to the Mayor episode. Again, Mayor Dane's a candidate for re-election, so we put a pause a bit on her coming into the studio out of fairness to her opponent, and she was gracious enough to work with the city, arrange a schedule of stand-ins, people to come down. And I don't know if people volunteered or did she force you?
I'm trying to think back.
Was it a threat in any way? You will?
It was at staff meeting, and there was a volunteer or two, and we just kind of worked it out in a matter of minutes. But we're all happy to be here. So hopefully it's been informative.
We very much appreciate it, and it definitely is. And for listeners, we'll keep the conversation going on the other side of these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:34, and the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Utah Treasurer Marlo Oaks on Wednesday announced that the Permanent State School Fund will make the largest ever distribution to Utah schools next year. Schools are scheduled to receive a record $95.8 million from the Permanent State School Fund in July of next year, a 3.2% increase from this year's distribution of $92.8 million. Under the School Land Trust Program, investment earnings from the Permanent State School Fund are distributed to every school in the state based on a per-pupil formula. Each school's community council, comprised of parents, teachers, and the principal, annually determines the greatest academic needs of their students and prepares plans to improve student academic performance with their portion of distributions from the fund. The Navajo Nation on Tuesday reported 85 more COVID-19 cases, but no additional deaths for the 14th time in the past 20 days. The latest numbers push the tribe's totals to 34,999 confirmed COVID-19 cases from the virus since the pandemic began more than a year ago. The known death toll remains at 1,464. Tribal officials still are urging people to get vaccinated, wear masks while in public, and minimize their travel. Based on cases from October 1st through 14th, the Navajo Department of Health issued an advisory for 31 communities due to the uncontrolled spread of the virus. The tribe's reservation is the country's largest at 27,000 square miles. It covers parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. The city of Hailey, Idaho, is asking a judge to throw out a lawsuit brought by an anti-mask group, arguing the group's members cannot show they've been harmed by a local mask mandate. The Health Freedom Defense Fund, based in Sandpoint, filed the lawsuit in U.S. District Court last month, saying the city's mask mandate amounts to a mandatory human experiment. City Attorney Deborah Ferguson on Tuesday asked a federal judge to dismiss the case, noting that none of the group's members claim to have been cited for violating mask rules. She noted the mask mandate includes several exemptions, including one for people who cannot medically tolerate masks. KVNU News Time is 4:37.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
KVNU weather, partly cloudy this evening, then becoming mostly cloudy, low in the low 30s, and then sunny into the lower 60s on Thursday, partly cloudy in mid-60s on Friday. It's been to 56. It's 56 degrees right now at KVNU. Weather brought to you by Winco Foods. They are now hiring for their new Logan store opening soon at 1341 North Main. You can be a part of this employee-owned company with competitive wages, employee stock ownership plan, health benefits as low as $30 a month, 401k, and advancement opportunities. Apply at wincofoods.com/LoganJobs. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Ted Karen with Edward Jones Investments in Smithfield, bringing you the daily financial market report for Wednesday, October 20th. Equity markets closed mostly higher as investors digest solid incoming earnings announcements alongside ongoing inflation and supply chain concerns. The Dow was up 152, the S&P 500 up 16, and the Nasdaq down 7 on Wednesday. The Dow and the S&P closed just below their all-time highs. Value and defensive companies outperformed as utilities, real estate, and healthcare led the gains. Meanwhile, growth sectors like technology and discretionary underperformed as 10-year Treasury yields rose to 1.64%, a high for the month. In commodities, oil was up another $1 to $83 a barrel, and gold was up $15 to $1,786 an ounce. It was a fairly quiet day for the markets, with a combination of earnings results, incoming economic readings, and expectations around upcoming Fed moves likely to guide performance as we advance through year-end. Consumer price pressures have been persistent, broadly in line with our expectations that inflation would subside but settle in at a higher level than we experienced through the last expansion. This, in our view, will prompt the Fed to start reducing bond purchases as early as next month. While this tapering phase may add to market anxiety, we still believe tighter monetary policy conditions are a ways off, with the first rate hike likely a year away. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Ted Caron with Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice. If you'd like additional information, please visit our website at edwardjones.com or contact any of the 7 Edward Jones advisors in Cache Valley, in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield.
I am Amy Anderson, and I am seeking your vote for re-election to Logan City Council. Serving on council has increased my admiration for our citizens. Their thoughtful questions and passionate ideas. I'm grateful to live where people are engaged. As a servant leader within the diverse communities that make up our city, I have seen the needs. I listen. I know how to ask questions. I apply standards. I work to forge agreement. And I'll continue to serve enthusiastically and fairly for you.
Paid for by Amy Anderson for Logan City Council.
Utah's ICUs are full of COVID patients, nearly all of whom haven't been vaccinated. Last week, it took hospital staff an average of 3 hours and 45 minutes to locate an available ICU bed for a patient who needed one. Delays in getting into a hospital aren't just inconvenient, they can also impact the care a patient receives. Please get vaccinated to keep ICU beds open and to help others get the help they need. It's easy to get the vaccine. It's easy to find out more information about the vaccine. Just visit coronavirus.utah.gov.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter in the studio as well, and we're joined by a very special guest here in Hour 1. From Logan City, we have with us Economic Development Director Kirk Jensen, and we've covered a lot of ground already, but, you know, Kirk, it's interesting with your job, there are just endless avenues this could all be taken. You mentioned downtown, and people don't maybe realize this on a daily basis, but and there's a lot of actual science behind this, or analysis, I guess we should say, data analytics. But downtown is just one part of a city, especially the size of Logan. It's geographically a small part of Logan. But a city's downtown, I've heard it referred to as the canary in the coal mine. I've heard it referred to as something businesses look at before they decide on relocation. I've heard it referred to as something that potential employees of businesses look at before they decide to take a job. They'll look at the downtown. Any insight into that? Why downtown? What makes it so key to all of these decisions?
You know, I think you touched on it in multiple facets with your comments there. I mean, it is kind of the core of your city, the cultural core,
sure,
this historical core, in one respect. That you've got this collection in our downtown specifically. You've got some old buildings, you know, that were built in the 1880s, and they've got right after Logan became a city, and and lots of history there. You've got, the Downtown Alliance loves to do their ghost tours down in those basements. I mean, so there's a lot of cool stuff.
They're pretty creepy.
Yeah, but to get back to the point of your question, I mean, you've got a lot of places to eat, cultural performances, a lot of community civic activities that occur in a downtown, and its presence. I mean, it's on Main Street, so anyone that passes through here is going to notice it. And so it's a reflection, I think, of your community. It's that curb appeal of the city. So I think it's got to look good, but even beyond look good, that's only one small part of it. It's got to deliver.
Yeah.
And Mayor Daines has made downtown a core part of her administration, of her vision. And so we spend a good deal of our time focusing on downtown, working on the objectives that she wants to achieve, and you see some great things happening. The Center Street revitalization, where basically you put in a new road, you widen the sidewalks, you added the cool arch, you've got now outdoor dining. So that investment by the city and the property owners that abut Center Street, all of that sets that table for even more economic development, perhaps other businesses coming in, more of a draw. Now you add the Central Block Plaza onto that. All those things contribute to that. Housing's a big part of it, too. If you listen to gurus in downtown development, they will tell you that housing's a key part to have that 24-hour, 7-day-a-week population, that's their place, and that helps drive demand for goods and services. So we're really pleased that we've got some developers, local developers, doing some really neat housing projects. You got Mill Creek at the corner of First South, First West, just across the street from the high school. That thing's nearing completion.
Oh, already? Wow.
Yeah, potential phase 2 on that one, running eastward up First South. Renewal is in the planning stages now, which would be just east of the tennis courts or the recreation center, Logan High, again on First West. And then L59 on First East, just east of the, where Joanne Fabrics and Crafts is and the Chuckarama. They are going to be underway here shortly in the next month or two.
That's a lot. Happening at one time.
Yeah, libraries, another one you can add to that list, and we're working on that 300 North corner, just north of where the library site will be, to tear down those old buildings which have become blighted, and we're fairly far along in discussions with a potential project there, we hope. So more to come on that one later.
That one's been fascinating for me as just a radio host. I'm always 3 mayors now, 3 different mayors. It's the one area of the city that has probably generated the most calls. And it's always the same question: what is going to happen to that 300, 400 North block? It was for some a thorn in their side. They would look at it and see, just as a resident of the city, this potential, this location with so much potential, and yet the buildings there, as you said, pretty run down. That was fascinating for me to see a community at large kind of latch on to the future of this one part of one block. But it also sort of speaks to Logan residents and how they feel about their community, right? Which is also, in its own way, part of economic development. Is that, difficult to put a pulse on at times? I know there's not a lot of money in the budget for polling and things like that, surveying, but some is done.
I think, on a maybe not a real formal sense, but in an informal way, certainly we sense from the population that downtowns are important. It could be those neighborhoods that are immediately adjacent to downtown, but I think it's people in general. They just want a vibrant place, a gathering spot, amenities. They want to see arts, restaurants, those kind of things. The university, I've heard, if you're recruiting a new professor to town, it goes back to what your earlier comment. I think there's an expectation that your downtown is vibrant, that it feels the part, it looks the part of a happening fun place, right?
That was one of the things recently that I came across that was shocking at first and then immediately totally made sense. But it was presented at the Silicon Slopes Summit. Silicon Slopes Summit. That's harder to say than I thought. That happened just last week, or actually I think parts of it's still going on. Started last week. This summit, presented at this summit, was a survey of tech jobs, people in the tech sector, and what they looked at before deciding on a job, because this is a very competitive sector, and a lot of people who have the qualifications for one of these jobs have something many of us maybe never get a chance to experience, but basically employers fighting over you. And so they would look at certain things, and that was one of the things that sort of, like I say, surprised me at first and then totally made sense. People would go out and tour a city's downtown. before deciding on which job they wanted to take. They wanted to know what kind of downtown nightlife they would have access to, what it was like to be in the downtown of a city before they decided on which job they'd take and where to live.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating to me.
Yep.
But at the same time, I then think of you and your role, and I think, how do you public opinion changes fast, public consumer behavior changes fast sometimes, and you're trying to do your best to capture it for that moment and then look ahead a little bit at the same time.
Sure.
You have to go home with some headaches once in a while. I guess that's the question.
I usually drive home thinking about a project or two and do the same on the way to work. It's like, okay. But anyway, that's just all part of it.
That is, and then of course, there's coordination with the county on some level, right? The county's kind of getting into this a little bit with the, what are we calling it, Imagine Cash?
Well, yeah, there's been some planning efforts, over the years. Envision Cash was done years back, and in various meetings I'm at, the county's there, other agencies too. Cache County has its own economic development director now. I know Executive Zook is very involved and has a keen interest in economic development. So yes, we do try to work closely with them, and certainly they're our partners. When it comes to the redevelopment agency activities and funding various improvement, enhancement, redevelopment activities, they are a financial partner through property tax revenues. So definitely, they are a key partner of ours, as is the school district.
We should also, point this out just as both a moment of praise for your department, but also an opportunity for listeners to get more engaged in all of this. But and it's something that at times the legislature has had some criticism of the statewide effort, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. But here in Logan City, transparency on all of this is very key, and you guys have always been great over the years to make sure that what the economic development projects and ideas are costing, if anything, or what the plan is. You've been very forthcoming with that. Is that a challenge as well? Because sometimes you don't really know what it's going to take. Is it right?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a tricky aspect of the job. Certainly, the more you do it year after year, you become used to that, and I wouldn't say numb to it, but you get used to it, and that's just part of what you do. Certainly, there's conversations, there's inquiries that are confidential and are kept at that level, and aren't in the public domain until a certain point when there's certain trigger items that they throw it into that public domain. And certainly on a funding level, we try to be very transparent in showing, okay, here's the plan. This is what the city's trying to do in partner with a great development project or whatever. And here's the dollars that are being involved on from the public sector.
It's an important thing, and I hope Logan City residents appreciate it. Not every city, not even the state, doing as well on that front, and kind of a personal obsession of mine. So thanks for allowing me that little moment there. Our guest again is Kirk Jensen, Economic Development Director for Logan City, joining us for our Speak to the Mayor segment. Logan City Mayor Holly Dane's, again, a candidate for re-election, so we put a pause on her visits to the studio each month, but we kept the series going with a different representative from Logan City each month. And this month, again, our guest, Kirk Jensen, Logan City Economic Development Director. And we have a few more minutes left with him on the other side, 753-5868. If you have a question, we'll be back right after this.
NMLS 1817019.
LendRight Mortgage declares freedom from high rates and closing costs with the introduction of our Freedom Loan. What is a Freedom Loan? 1, you pay 0 closing costs. 2, you get a rate that's the same or lower than the rate other lenders charge you thousands in points and fees to get. The choice is clear. Pay thousands more than you should with another lender, or get the same or lower rate and have the Freedom Loan cover 100% of your closing costs. Act now. Freedom Loan APRs are as low as 1.92% for 8 to 15-year terms and 2.67% for 16 to 30-year terms. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com. Get a Freedom Loan and say no to high rates and closing costs. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendrightmortgage.com.
Attention all USU football fans. The USU campus store is ready to get you geared up for this week's homecoming game against Colorado State. Show your true school spirit with the latest selection of Aggie t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and outwear, including jackets from Columbia and Champion. Come check out the all-new Nike sideline gear, along with many more items arriving every day. Parking validation available with $10 campus store purchase. Make the USU campus store your one-stop shop for all Aggie gear. Go Aggies!
Procrastination isn't a valid retirement strategy. If your saving for a retirement approach involves the phrase, "I'll get around to it someday," it's time to make someday into today. Edward Jones can help. Contact your local Edward Jones financial advisor to get started today. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. When it comes to meeting your retirement goals, time can be on your side, and there's no better time than now. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Hi, this is Brian Webster, and I'm Garrett Tanner with Cache Valley Bank. In celebration of USU's homecoming and our post-COVID opening of our mall branch location in Logan, we're inviting you and your family to our Customer Appreciation event Friday, October 22nd, 11:30 to 2:30. We'll have a La Unica food truck and lots of goodies and giveaways. We appreciate our great customers and community. Come enjoy some good food with us in front of the mall at 1320 North Main, Logan on Friday, October 22nd. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC, and go Aggies.
When the bills from your accident pile up, it's time for you to consider professional legal counsel. Get the Bear, Berenson and Caldwell.
My name's Keenan Prescott. Berenson and Caldwell helped me manage a lot of different aspects to a complicated case. Someone hit me head on with their car, and I've had a lot of different legal things surrounding that, like my health insurance broke their contract with me. My medical bills would not have been paid without Berenson and Caldwell. They've been really good at explaining things and helping me understand their process.
Visit BerensonLaw.com to instantly connect and receive a free case review of your injury. BerensonLaw.com.
Just a couple of minutes left here with our guest in Hour 1, Kirk Jensen, Logan City Economic Development Director. And Kirk, we have covered a lot of ground this hour and appreciate you taking the time to come in and do it.
Sure.
Any final thoughts for listeners out there? I guess, a great question maybe to wrap up on. How can people get engaged in this process? Offer feedback, learn more about what your department does, what's coming down the pike, things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. My contact information's on the website, or someone can always call the switchboard at Logan City, which is 435-716-9000, and give me a call. Stop by. Let's set a time and talk together. So I'm happy to share information, and I do that from time to time. Certainly with the redevelopment agencies, sometimes those are kind of complicated, how they're funded and budgeted and the various provisions. And so, we did a presentation a while back with the redevelopment agency board and anyone that attended. But if someone has specific questions, we're happy to answer that. And I speak for, I'll go ahead and speak for other city departments. I think we've got great people there, and they're always happy to answer a question, take the time to explain something.
And it is, like you said, this is complex. It's something that can, raise a lot of suspicion at times. It can also be something that is easily put out there for the public to consume if they choose to, and oftentimes we choose not to. But it's the future of the city, really.
Right.
That you're going in each day and trying to juggle.
And then while we were offline, we talked about, city meetings, public hearings.
Sure.
Certainly for a citizen to watch for those and see if there's an item that interests you, and then come, listen, participate, speak.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great opportunity to be engaged that way.
Be a part of it. For Logan residents, economic development literally is the future of the city. So take advantage of your opportunity to be engaged in it. Our guest again has been Kirk Jensen, Economic Development Director for Logan City. And Kirk, thank you for your time. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. On the other side, we'll speak with the director of something called the Full Stack Academy. They've recently partnered with Utah State University to offer very intense tech job boot camps to basically everyone here in northern Utah. It's a huge announcement. We'll talk about it with the director of the academy right after this here on KVNU Logan.